Hello and welcome back to my engine diary. And today I want to talk a bit about the UI which was recently introduced in the engine. So we got an entity component system here. I quickly show you that. We got the UI entity which just defines an entity that contains the hierarchy and stuff like that. So just hierarchy things and positioning, translation, stuff like that. This doesn't draw anything or it doesn't update anything. It's just for holding the information needed to proceed the position and extend. Now we got the UI component, which is the components you can add to the UI entity. What you see here is that first of all, it is not split into two separate files. It's just in one file because I thought it would make sense, because if you need the UI entity, you're also gonna need the UI component and vice versa. The problem is it is not, for the sake of file viewing, I would say we'll separate that into two different files, so just for better visibility. I'm quickly going to talk about what I want to do and what this currently is. As I said, is entity component system, but I have some problems with it. First of all, the there's an anchor system, so you got anchors, and those anchors are calculated, and you better use they used to calculate where the actual position of the draw is. So you can, for example, define a centered draw, which means that the position you give in is just the center. The extent always stays the extent, but you can like change the pivot, is it pivot or something, of the drawing. The problem with it is that currently every component has an update method, which means you first of all update everything, but you don't need to actually update. The update method is just for updating the entity. So if you want to, for example, change the position of the entity, or I don't know, change the extent for some reason, you have to use this update method. But this update method is called in each and every update component, in each and every component, even when it isn't necessary to call it. That is not good. And also you have to query the whole thing twice. So you have to call it, we have an array here for, let me show that. We have an array here for the components, and you have to query those components. Sorry, I got interrupted. Back to the point. We got a list of UI components here, and you have to query them two times, because first of all you have an update call, so you call the update of each component, and then you call the draw of each component, which is not necessary because most of the components don't update anything. So I want to split those two things in separate things, like in a iDrawable and in a iUpdatable or something, which means you have two separate vectors which contain the draw components and the update components. And if you have nothing to update, like if it is a static UI you use, you don't have to have a a update method, and it isn't even like, you know, it's not executed at all. So this should take off a lot of things, and also you can clearly, yeah, you can better split them for the sake of overseeing all things. I have made an UML diagram. I won't show this because it was handwritten. You probably can't read it, and I did that in school. So just I want to now write that. So I will write that right now, and then I'll explain what I did there. I maybe do that step by step. I don't know how to do it now. I just start as ever. So I would say see you. So there we are back. Now let's take a look at what I changed. Oh, those changes are no, those are the deleted. So first of all, I renamed the file so that and I separated the entity from the components in different files. So I renamed the file to UI entity, and at the same time I made two new files which are UI drawable and nope, UI updatable. Here it is, and we're gonna take a look at those. First of all, there's the update component, which is basically just a component that handles the update. So there is the update default implementation, and there is a enable property, so you can disable this specific update, and there's also on add and on remove, which is just helper methods for internal things. Also there is the parent, so it knows the UI updatable knows one it belongs to. Yeah, that's basically it. Then I got the entity, the UI entity, which is basically the same entity as before, but going to unified view so that you can review that. Drawable, we get to that UI entity. Now we have two separate functions for add updatable and add drawable. We have also two different vectors now for them, so that the updates are only going through the updatable components and not through the drawable components. So those are finally separated now. Now you can set visibility. That is something I changed. So I added a visibility modifier. If you don't want your entity to be visible but still get updates, you can use the visible property and set or reset them. So now the biggest change is, I think, the cache values. So there is now a update system which features the methods around here. So you got still local extend and a local position, which are just those normal things here, and you got the cached position and the cached extend, which is basically calculated values. So those get calculated on update. So if you update them, they get calculated, and that's done through the set position and set extend. They calling the update method, and therefore the get position method and stuff like that. So this updates now everything so you don't have to calculate anchor systems and the relation between those things, those components and entities. You only have to calculate them if they are changed. So if for example a parent entity changes its value, I'm gonna show that. For example, if subposition is called, there is the update method called, which calls the get position method that calculates the position accordingly. So it gives it in screen coordinates. So the cache positions, the cache values are basically screen coordinates. Then you have the accent with the multiplier, which is basically to, yeah, to set the, I'm gonna have to fix something there. It's just the problem is that the first time update is called, it the multiplier isn't called, so it's still not, it's still one, I think. So this doesn't represent like the things we want. Multiply is it's a bit dumb named, but it's basically the aspect ratio. So it gives you a multiplier that you can multiply your x value with to actually get a compressed screen, if you want to say so. I have to calculate anchors here, so I've not done this for now, but I will still do that. And then it goes through the hierarchy and updates those entities. And after that, the drawable components, they are updated too, because I don't know how. I think that's the best I could have done here. So in the updatable components, in the drawable components, not in the updatable, there you have also a cache value, which is the cache position. That means they are calculating their anchor on top of all the anchors. So they get the already cached position, and then they like calculate their anchors on them, and those get recalculated every time. Every time you update a value. So two problems now: if you resize the window, those things currently don't get called, which is a bad thing. So I want them to be called in the int init. Which is also not good because the init is also, yeah, it is also, how is that called? So it goes through the hierarchy. So that is bad. It would go all the way 3 times through the hierarchy or something. That is not good. There is the init call after the multiplier. So it would actually make sense to call them in the int, but and that's the big but here. Nah. But for now we can call it. We can check if it has a parent value. That would make sense. So if the parent is null, then this won't update. This does make sense though. So let's just try that. So there we are again. Now we see things are drawn correctly now. My bad, I used the cache value. That happens sometimes. I use the cache value instead of the normal values. I have to do it differently with the anchors, but now it should, yeah, it's not implemented, but it is on startup. It fits the aspect ratio so that it won't look stretched or anything else. Thanks for watching. That was kinda a big thing to update the UI. Yeah, I hope I gave you a look. I hope I could give you a good look into the engine and things. That's basically how it works. The test application is here. I'll have to do the angle calculation a bit differently. Again, thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Cheers.